All right, so I recently came into the possession of a Reising M50. Not a gun I was ever looking to pick up, but there was a fella getting rid of one and he wanted way too little money for it, and I just couldn't say no. So this is my third time taking the gun out. The first time I broke a firing pin on the first round or second round of the second magazine that I put through the gun. Second time I took the gun out, I had picked up a few Christie magazines. Got through maybe 100 rounds of those, and then as soon as I tried an aftermarket magazine, had some failures to feed and broke another firing pin. The first firing pin was the original factory firing pin. The second is one that I made and hardened out of 01 tool steel, basically to the same parameters as the original firing pin. So yeah, that's not uncommon. Lots of folks break firing pins on these all the time. It's not an uncommon issue. I have a theory as to why they break, and so I have made a new firing pin, and I am trying it out. I have around 200 rounds through this gun today with my new firing pin, intentionally using my least reliable magazines, and I have not broken a firing pin. So I think I may be onto something here. I'll talk about what's different. I intended to put about 250 rounds through the gun, but yeah, true to form, the magazine catch retention screw has just pulled through the threaded hole in the back of my magazine well. It is stripped out. I don't think by me, maybe by a previous owner. So yeah, I don't know. These are interesting guns. They do kind of suck in terms of breaking parts and reliability. Thankfully, there's lots of replacement magazine wells, so I've got a replacement for that. And worst case, I can make this work with a bigger screw or a nut on the back or something like that. All right, but in any case, I don't have an original firing pin, but in terms of what I have done differently, this is a titanium firing pin from Keystone Arms. It follows basically the same dimensions, I think, in critical areas as the original firing pins. The Harrington and Richardson firing pins were tapered almost this entire length. This Keystone firing pin is not, but I think it has the same critical flaw as the original firing pin. So my theory is that these guns are prone to malfunction, particularly with the aftermarket mags that a lot of folks are using today. And my theory is that during those malfunctions, this original firing pin is capable of a tremendous amount of protrusion. So to make this easier to see, I'm going to put the Keystone firing pin in, put the cross pin, but I don't have the spring in there. I will just manually push the firing pin as far forward as it can go. And you see we've got probably almost a 1/4 inch of protrusion. So my theory is that during certain types of failure to feed, maybe the round coming up through the magazine basically will just shear this firing pin off when inertia bottoms it all the way out and you get this enormous amount of protrusion. So I have not actually tested this titanium firing pin. Folks tell me that these titanium pins are better than the original Harrington Richardson factory pins, but they still break. So what I have done is I have made 3 firing pins out of different materials and slightly different dimensions. I brought all 3 expecting that maybe I would break one of them. Again, in these 200 rounds that I was able to get through the gun, the first one didn't break, so I've still got the original 2. So I'm going to compare these dimensions from the Keystone firing pin here on the left and one of my new firing pins on the right. I've made them out of fatigue-proof steel, 01 tool steel, and S7 tool steel. S7 really should be the best firing pin. I made that one last. The stress-proof doesn't require heat treating, so that's the one that I tested first. And yeah, it's fine. I'm worried about the tip here. I think durability on that tip might not be great. The S7 is heat treated, so it's harder. I think this is going to be the ticket, the S7. But I think the fact that I didn't break this fatigue-proof firing pin sort of validates the concept. So you'll notice a couple of things about the new firing pin. First of all, it is shorter overall, which is to say it operates on the inertia principle. This has been talked about online, although folks who have modified their original firing pins to work on the inertia principle have noted that, well, some of them have said that they still break. So the idea behind the inertia principle is this is the longer original firing pin. If I take the end of the firing pin flush with the back of the bolt, you'll notice that the firing pin sticks out. All right, an inertia firing pin, if you take the back of the firing pin, bring it flush with the bolt, it does not stick out. So under spring pressure, you're relying on the inertia of the hammer to push that firing pin all the way through the bolt face in order to set off the cartridge. So that is the first modification that I've done. I'm not sure how important it is, but a lot of people say that helps, so why not? I did that too. But I think one of the other critical things that I've done is obviously I have reduced the stick out of that thin, fragile portion of the firing pin. It's really no longer than it needs to be, but most critically, this flat here at the rear of the firing pin that the cross bolt goes through, I've reduced the length of that flat and positioned it and sized it such that I can control the maximum firing pin protrusion. So I'm going to put my stress-proof pin back in the bolt, put the cross pin back in, and if I push this firing pin as far in it as you will go, you'll notice rather than a 1/4 inch of protrusion, I've just got a very tiny amount of protrusion. So that should be about 50 thousandths. I think that is similar to what folks recommend for the firing pin protrusion on something like a 1928 Thompson. And indeed, that seemed to work well on this gun. So this is the S7 firing pin. I'm going to reassemble this with the spring. Put the pin in here, and all of these, again, I have positioned that flat such that my maximum protrusion is about 50 thousandths, right? And again, I have done that by changing the position of this flat, shortening it up so that when the firing pin travels all the way forward, the rear of this flat is restricting the forward movement of the pin. Now, that's not what this cross pin was designed to do, right? To be a stop for this firing pin. So it's possible that, maybe eventually you'll deform this cross pin based on just the position of this cross pin and the sort of support that it has on either side of the bolt. I don't think that's a big deal, but it's something to be concerned about. So yeah, in any case, I think that this, if it's not completely a fix, it certainly seems to help a lot. On these crappy, unreliable, actually this is a factory mag, on these crappy, unreliable Sarco magazines, it seemed like I couldn't get through 2 magazines, only in 2 outings, mind you, but I couldn't get through 2 magazines without breaking a firing pin. And I've gotten through, gosh, I don't know, maybe 7 or 8 of those crappy Sarco magazines with tons of failures along the way, cleared lots of jams. I'll include some footage of all of my struggles getting through my test ammo today. But yeah, again, probably close to 200 rounds using a fatigue-proof version of my new firing pin design. And yeah, no broken pin. So it's pretty cool.